Heather Caswell, owner of The Wardrobe.
Hi, I'm Heather Caswell, the owner of the Wardrobe in downtown Davis, and I've been running my business since 1988. So I've had a really long adventure of being a small business owner.
What was your pathway to becoming a business owner?
I moved to Davis, California because of a restaurant called the Blue Mango. And because I knew I belonged in Northern California, where there was a very health conscious state of mind and lifestyle. And in working with the Blue Mango and at the Blue Mango, it was a worker owned cooperative vegetarian coffee house with live music every night. I discovered my love for community and the value of supporting community. And all of a sudden, by following my heart and doing things that I knew were important to me, I started a new career direction just by following my heart. And the day that the bookkeeping team at the restaurant announced I needed to go to part-time because there were financial difficulties, I went to a store called the Wardrobe to consign some clothing because I got through college consigning clothing. And there was a part-time job on the wall listed that very same day after getting that news that I was going down to part-time. And so I basically said, I'm interested. I would love to, work here. And within a month of working at a store called the Wardrobe that was in downtown Davis, 2nd and G Street, I was offered the opportunity to be manager. And just a few months after that, I was offered to buy the business. And all of a sudden, I was finding myself in an opportunity that I never could have imagined. But all of a sudden, I was at the right place at the right time with an opportunity in front of me and decided, in fact, that I had nothing to lose. I was, 22, not sure where I was going professionally, and it seemed like a great opportunity to be creative and community active. And so my business became an opportunity that I chose, never foreseeing it as an opportunity, but just following my heart and being in that kind of position to make those kinds of choices early in my life led me to do what I'm now doing. And it's been, a really, again, creative. I feel that the arts have been a part of my life, incredibly rewarding, fulfilling, challenging, all the things that I find valuable. And financially has supported a lifestyle that is comfortable and has allowed me to create a really healthy relationship with myself, with my community, and with just a great group of people that are my customers. And it's been my teacher.
What skills serve you well in your business?
I think it's really important to stay in touch with the community's needs and the niche that you can fill. And so essentially, I became very involved in doing that with my business. And because I, at the time, had costumes my first decade, I started producing the Halloween ball that the Davis Food Co-op sponsored along with the Blue Mango. So I had already established relationships to both of those groups of community. And I learned how to produce live music while being at the Blue Mango because I helped start the alley dances. And then I continued to stay integrated with the skills that I had already established at my first job as outreach coordinator at the Blue Mango, and then integrated it with my new work, and it became a really good fit where all of a sudden, I'm building community with my business, and that was incredibly rewarding as a human being as well as a business owner. And it just continued to help me shape my relationships and my network and my ability to bring what I would call vibrancy to the community.
What have you learned about managing employees at your business?
The whole process of hiring and employees and staff is actually the hardest part for me of being a business owner. And I've been very, very fortunate to have some incredibly talented people working with me over the years. But I've personally learned that it's hard to manage more than 5 people well. And I've had as many as 10 people working for me at one time. And I personally have learned that I prefer 5 or less people, and that 5 is optimal for the proper balancing act, and where I'm able to do the work that I feel I'm here to be doing, along with getting the proper support from my team and not spending too much time talking and directing and engaging with direction, as I would describe it. And I started calling myself a director years ago when I had a team of at least 10 people I was managing, just to try and adjust to that role comfortably. But it was a challenging role to be in for me. And it took me away from my time with staff, was taking away from my time with customers often. And so I would say that has been a struggle. And I had a lot of challenge with that in my second location. And now my third location, smaller, so I need a smaller team. So it's easier to manage, I find, with a smaller team when you're in a smaller business, such as mine.
What have you learned from changing the location of your business?
So I've had 3 locations over my 33 years of doing business. And I loved my first location. It worked really well. It was affordable. Great location at 2nd and G Street in downtown Davis. And it was in a building that should have been designated historic, but wasn't. And it was understood that it would eventually, be going through changes. And then all of a sudden, I was given just 2 months notice that I needed to relocate. It was Mother's Day weekend, and it was a really hard thing to be told. And so I would say that that was probably one of the most challenging things that I've had to learn to manage and work through, and essentially move from a state of being fearful to courageous, and to just really embrace the nature of a life is change, and that I believed in my work. And actually, now that I remember, I remember that I had to look at how committed I was to doing my work when I was in those crossroads. And so I had to ask myself, am I fully committed to this work? And I found that the answer was yes. And there was no doubt in my mind that I was committed. And then, with the help of a few people that I knew, I was able to successfully find as good, if not better, location with both my moves. And I would say that, that's probably the question needed to be asked, is your level of commitment to your business. And I think with full commitment, generally there will be a successful transition and opportunity to reinvent your business.
In retrospect, is there anything you do differently in your business career?
The only thing that I can think of is that there was a time, it was around when I had been doing business for about 20 years. I developed a little bit of an attitude that I've seen it all. And just when I developed that attitude, there were a lot of curveballs that started to be presented to me. And I would say that it's just important to always, in my opinion, have the attitude of an intention to learn, and just continue to be open, because, I think there's always something new to learn, and it's important to have that openness with your staff and your process.
What would you tell people considering a career in business?
I think it's incredibly important to build a support system among people that believe in you and your work, and have the ability to support and for you to lean on them when you're struggling with, a question, an issue, or, having financial difficulties. Super important to have a really, talented accountant, a healthy relationship with, your banking institution, and to stay, again, true to yourself in your work and your values, and to really learn how to express your authentic voice. And I think it will prove to be very successful if you continue to practice authenticity.
Heather Caswell, owner of The Wardrobe.